This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, the grief-powered arrow.
Hello, I am Gepwin, and welcome to Who Watches the Watchers Who Watch Tomorrow. It's a mouthful.
Yes.
I'm joined, as always, by my friend and co-host, Dr. Izix.
Hi.
And this week we're doing Who Watches the Watchers, because I need to say that, because otherwise that was just a word salad.
So anyone's confused, this is an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that we're talking about on Watchers of Tomorrow that is called Who Watches the Watchers, and you are listening to Who Watches the Watchers be discussed on Watchers of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep. Now let's say that 10 times fast.
No, I'm not going to get into that with the Latin and the... This is we're still in the 80s, barely.
Mm-hmm.
We're still in 1989 for these episodes.
1989.
But we're into October now, so we're getting there.
Excellent. Soon we'll escape the 80s and enter the 90s, and everything will be like radical, man.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember that.
And we'll have skateboards and, orange and teal shirts and stuff like that.
Why did we were all colorblind in the 90s?
For a little bit.
Just looking back.
I think Nickelodeon had like half of the responsibility there, but, once you kind of get green slime everywhere, you got to figure out what goes with it, and not a lot does.
Yeah, it all evens out. Once it's all covered in green puke here, everyone looks the same.
Indeed.
It was the great equalizer of our time.
But yeah, we're actually with more earth tones in today's episode, though.
Yeah, way too many earth tones, in fact. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right, so this should actually be kind of quick, because just interestingly, even though we have a lot of guest stars, they're easier to talk about. First, writing is by Richard Manning and Hans Blemmer, who we've talked about before. They're the power team who worked on Arsenal of Freedom, Schizoid Man, etc. They'll continue to pop up as we go because they were co-producers at the time. And then Blemmer goes on to do significant work on DS9 later on.
Any particular highlights, or?
We'll talk about DS9 later. It's fine.
Yes. Like 26 episodes or something like that, if I recall.
Yeah, right? Too many. Too many. So, okay, we're going to just randomly talk about some guest stars very quickly because there's way too many people in this episode. So we're going to do a quick rundown.
Yes, do it.
Catherine Leigh Scott as Nuria. She is best known for playing several characters on the long-running soap opera Dark Shadows and related spin-off shows.
And Ghost of Josette.
Ray Weiss as Liko, who's best known for being that guy that you look at and go like, I've seen this guy in so much shit, why can't I remember it?
Just looking at some of the stuff here, it's like, RoboCop and some sort of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, he was in Twin Peaks, RoboCop, the Twin Peaks prequel, Psych, X-Men First Class, which is a cartoon. You wouldn't have seen him. A really weird Voyager episode.
Oh, which one?
Now, why didn't I write that down? Why did I do this to myself?
Well, so we can have questions about our sanity later.
Yeah. Come on, Ray Weiss. Ray White. My God. Ray Weiss, which Voyager episode were you in?
I almost had it. Where'd my thingamajig go? There it is.
Hope and Fear. The bald dude. The weird bald dude. There we go.
Yes. It's probably one of the episodes where he's least looking like himself.
Yeah. He's the bald dude where
like
Janeway
really
and Seven of Nine get kidnapped on a fake Federation ship, and it just leads to, like, so much sapphic fan fiction. Like, so much.
I will say it is maybe one of my favorite episodes because it does show that despite Voyager kind of having a reset button because they need to have the ship back in working order each week, that sometimes there are consequences for things that happened earlier. Just after this, that's the consequence, and that's it.
Yeah, bald guy shows up and tries to kill you.
He was also in Powder, apparently, which also features a bald guy. That's important, right?
Yeah. All the bald roles. We need to know how many times an actor was bald, because it's related to Star Trek as a whole. Baldness is a very important Star Trek theme.
Yes, to baldly go.
We also have James Green as Baron, the longest working actor in any of these episodes. He had a 60-year career starting on Broadway in the 50s. He also continues being on Star Trek as a Bajoran in DS9 and a passerby in that weird modern-day episode of Voyager that everyone hates.
You mean, like 1159, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually kind of like it, but not as a Voyager episode, but we'll talk about it.
As an adaptation of You've Got Mail, whatever that bad movie was.
You Got Mail. Welcome to
Which was
AOL
also
Online.
itself an adaptation of, I can't remember what it was called, but something about writing each other letters before there was email.
Some sort of pen pal adventure?
Yeah. And there's more people than this, but for our purposes here, the last guest star, who I just thought was really interesting, she's also a main character, but I just thought this was fun, is Pamela Siegel as Oji. She's got a lot of roles in contemporary shows like Night Court and Willy Millie, which I'd never frickin' heard of. And a reoccurring role on Facts of Life, but she's best known for voice work that she does later, most notably as Bobby Hill in King of the Hill.
Excellent. To quote Bobby Hill, that's my person. I don't know you.
Yeah.
That's how it goes, right? I didn't mess that
she
up.
like gets to the yeah, she sees the Enterprise crew kidnapping someone. She runs us, says, that's my purse. I don't know you.
Excellent. Yeah, it's done a lot of voice work, in the post Star Trek era here. Most of these I've never heard of, but the Chicken Little video game is the thing, I guess.
Yeah, because that Chicken Little came out during the era where everything was a video game for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that as much anymore. Not since phones. Now everything is a phone match 3 game for no reason.
Yes. Oh, it was in the Animatrix.
Yeah, probably. Too many people were in the Animatrix. There's some real good shit in the Animatrix, but there's also some really confusing, weird shit in the Animatrix.
True. I guess that's what happens when you have an anthology and you just kind of let different animators and directors kind of just go wild. It's like, yeah, just don't break some of the rules here, but you can have fun with it otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have there's going to be too much political. There's going to be too much politics in this episode. I'm warning you now.
Yes.
There's capitalism, there's colonialism, it's all the isms.
So buckle in, but folks, we're going to have a ride today.
Yeah. So Enterprise is en route to repair the power supply for an anthropological outpost that set up a holographic duct blind to observe a race called the Mintakans, who are a proto-Vulcan people at a Bronze Age level of technology.
So I think it's appropriate here to mention the Orb people from the original series. This must be one of their colonies that got lost and things like that again. Also, Mintaka is an actual star that actually exists. It's in Orion.
Oh, cool. But does it have the Vasquez rocks?
It does now.
I think it would be very funny if, as we continue to explore space, if we ever get to the point where we can do interstellar travel, we just discover that every Earth-like, possibly habitable planet has this particular rock formation. It's just one of those weird geological quirks that the evolution of life on a planet goes with the Vasquez rocks.
Yep. Well, this is an ice planet, but we have this sort of small deserty area with a rock formation there. Wait a moment. This looks familiar.
So the team leader, Baron, contacts them because they only have 3 hours of emergency battery power, but it should get there in plenty of time. Just then, though, their generator blows up, electrocuting everyone in the outpost, lowering their holo screen, and sending one of the researchers flying out the window and down the very familiar cliffs of Southern California.
Yes. It is kind of amazing that this guy just kind of, like, gets projected out. It's like, this guy seems to be, like, intentionally jumping out, which I guess, in terms of filming, that's kind of what you have to do, but still.
I mean, I say throw. He's half thrown. He half sort of drunkenly wanders to the window and rolls over.
Yes. Oh no, I am gonna be injured unless I do this. Totally.
And the Enterprise speeds to the planet as two Mintakans, Liko and Oji, walk to an official sundial, because Oji's been appointed as the official record keeper, and she's so excited about it, she's like 5 hours early to take the midday reading.
So, you're going to be either waiting around, kid, or you're going to get really off results. Yeah.
Also, I know it's dumb. I just thought it was interesting because I was doing reading about this. Their clothing is way too tailored for Bronze Age level technology, which leads to an entire discussion of what the hell they mean when they say Bronze Age level whatever when they're talking about pre-warp societies.
Maybe the Federation just doesn't understand, anything about history at this point.
Yeah, this is like a 19th century sort of farmer outfit, which is way too loomed and tailored for most Bronze Age societies. They did not have tailored clothing in the Bronze Age. Most things were a big piece of fabric that you draped around yourself and belted.
And so all these buttons might be a little much.
Yeah, buttons and belts. And buttons were a luxury item well into the 1800s. Mm-hmm. You had to be rich to get buttons. People would button your stuff for you because anybody who could afford buttons had servants to dress them.
Yes. Well, maybe this is just a really bougie area.
Yeah, this is a very, very wealthy, bougie Bronze Age civilization that has buckles, metal buckles, and buttons.
Yeah, some of their outfits are just kind of tied and sashes and things like that. But yeah, there's enough buttons around here that's a little silly.
There's a hell of a lot of steel in this Bronze Age civilization.
Yes.
Now, cast iron. Cast iron was incredibly common in Bronze Age civilizations. Don't get me wrong, but nobody was making a cast iron belt buckle. So Oji sees light blinking off of a cliff and decides to investigate. The crew arrive, and an away team with Riker, Crusher, and Data and Geordi come to repair the duct blind. Meanwhile, Loki comes up to the outpost just in time to see a nurse disappear as they teleport one of the sick researchers up to sickbay. Data sees Loki, who then touches the window to escape, and apparently it's still charged with whatever the generator did, and it shocks him and he falls down the cliffs, where Crusher runs down to him and makes a decision to emergency beam him up to the ship for treatment. Oji, who's hiding in the rock, sees her father disappear, and then the duct line disappear when they restore power and the hologram comes back online.
All right, kid, your dad has been disappeared, and you just saw some really weird stuff. What do you do?
Yeah, a lot of stuff disappeared. Also, it's a very noisy day here in Brooklyn, so I apologize if there's any construction noise or horns or whatever. I'm trying, but there's no way I'm going to be editing around all of that. So, sorry about the noise pollution. Write your senators. So, in sickbay, Picard is a little bit more than pissed at Crusher that she saved some dude's life and brought him back to the ship, and that they may contaminate the planet, Prime Directive, etc., etc. She thinks it should be fine because he wouldn't have gotten hurt if they hadn't been there in the first place. She's going to wipe his memory, so no problem. It's fine.
Yes, and hopefully Dr. Pulaski's technique to erase memories totally works.
Yeah, this is just possibly just more evidence that Pulaski's just full of shit.
Yeah. But yeah, I have to call out Picard here because he's like, yeah, you should have let him die. No, you guys caused his injuries. You put his life in danger. You are responsible for this person now. The violation of the Prime Directive was the result of the power failure, not trying to save his life. So Picard, don't be a dick.
Yeah, you're basically saying, like, morally, you're kind of saying that the best thing to do in a situation where the Prime Directive is breached and a planet is contaminated is kill anyone who saw.
Yeah, that's terrible.
You know, just because he happened to fall down a cliff and was going to die, he's like, well, great, problem solved.
Yeah, it almost feels like he doesn't want to do some paperwork or something like that. It's like, oh, great, now I have to explain why we went and, like, complicated the situation here. Oh, so much paperwork, man.
Also, Liko woke up and has heard most of this conversation.
And he sees that Picard's being surly and commanding people around and stuff, so, that might mean something.
So they beam Liko back down to around where he fell, where Oji finds him. He remembers absolutely everything. He went to heaven, where the ancestors believed all-powerful beings lived and controlled everything. He was also brought back to life. They agree they need to go spread the good word, basically.
Well, all right, so Liko, here's a little FYI of sorts. Either people will believe you, and you're going to cause certain types of problems as a result, because there's going to be people out in the world that maybe don't trust your view on things, and suddenly you have holy wars, and that's going to be bad. Or no one's going to believe you, and they're going to think you're some sort of crazy person, and that's also going to be bad for your daughter. So make some wise decisions here, please.
Oh, somebody's been watching Dune. Every religion ends in a holy war.
Well, often enough.
Oh, Crusher stabilized Baron, but the other researcher is critical, and they have no clue where the dude who fell out the window wound up.
Yes,
He's gone.
That was Palmer, right?
Yeah. Riker suggests that they beam down and look for him, and sometime later they arrive on the planet, surgically altered to look like Mintakans. So he and Troy are now just wandering around.
Yeah, well, it's really convenient that we have all this Vulcan makeup just sitting around, so you guys can get into character nice and easy. Like
they're also been outfitted with subcutaneous communicators, so they can contact the ship. Which, like, why aren't these standard?
Yeah. I know it gets a little big brothery when like Stargate eventually has everyone involved in the program with transponders and things like that. But in terms of away teams, this seems like a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, there's so many times where they get captured and they just grab the comm badge off of them. They're like, no way to find you now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've solved my problem. Oh.
Plus, there's a difference in Big Brother level with, if you're actively in the military and they're like, we're going to put something on you so we can track you while you're actively in the military and in a dangerous situation, as opposed to just any random civilian.
Yes. So, let's learn some about the culture of the Mintakans.
Yeah, they get to a assembly building, basically, where Liko is telling everyone about his experiences, and he met their old gods, and their ancestors believed in stuff, and he's called the Picard.
Well, Troy, Riker, what do you think about this?
Well, first we got Nuria, who's the village leader, and she's skeptical because their ancestors were stupid, and we hate them. We have moved on from stupid shit, like believing in spirits, man. We are logical. We are the best boys. We are basically Bronze Age tech bros.
And, anyone that challenges that, well, you're just a stupid face.
Yeah. Troy tries to use this as an in to suggest that they had a really interesting dream. And the others are like, oh yeah, dream, that makes sense. He's just stupid and crazy. He's a stupid, crazy man who believes in stuff like God. We've moved so far past God. But just then, two men arrive carrying their missing anthropologist.
Well, this seems like some sort of evidence, because this guy doesn't have pointed ears.
And Liko overheard Picard was looking for the Palmer. So this must be that Palmer guy.
Does he have palms? I see he does. He must be Palmer.
So if they keep him, they'll be rewarded by the Picard.
Well, hopefully, I guess. How do you know this, Liko?
Because faith or something.
Well, if that's the case, I'm going to declare myself Super Pope, and everyone should listen to me instead.
So Riker tells Picard about his newfound godhood. He is less than enthused.
I wanted to not be a god. I wanted to be a super god.
Baron wants to pull their man out, arguing that there's already been a lot of cultural contamination, so even transporting him out right in front of their face would really not make much difference, and it would save a guy's life.
Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, things are all screwed. Just don't worry about it anymore.
Picard wants to try to do this without further cultural contamination. To that end, Troy tells everyone she saw another human in the mountains, and everybody except for the oldest dude in the village goes out, and Riker stays back to help the old guy tie proper restraints, which he does on the old dude.
Yep. So not the old guy that's Palmer, but the old dude that's watching Palmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the way, OG realizes that she needs to go back to look at the sundial because, she was several hours early before, but now it's noon finally.
Oh, it's time to check your watch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she doubles back, runs into Riker, who's tied up the old man and is carrying an anthropologist away. She screams about it, and the others give chase to try to restrain him and Troy. Troy's now trapped, so that worked well.
So Riker, why didn't you escort Palmer into a side room and then just beam up from there? Why didn't
you just go go around the corner?
Yeah.
Riker's able to get away and hide with enough time to beam out just before they're discovered. So they have Riker and the team back, but now Troy is prisoner, which is not convenient. Also, a very inconvenient thunderstorm has convinced Liko and the others that Picard is angry at them for losing his servant.
Well, if Picard was so wrathful before, this must be a sign of more wrath.
So back at the ship, Baron is suggesting that Picard just go down there. Because, if they've rekindled religion, they should at least give them some guidelines and rules. Because historically, that's worked very well for religions in the past.
Okay, that's some good sentiment there that, if you're going to have some, religion here, you don't want Liko just pulling something out of his backside here and hoping for the best. Maybe at least don't murder each other and don't actually worship me. Yeah, I don't want that. I actually kind of want you guys to keep doing what you're doing. But this is all Liko's fault. Blame him.
Yeah. Picard has absolutely no interest in riding down from the mount with commandments.
Yeah.
So he wants to kidnap their leader and tell her what's actually happening.
Yes, we established previously that the ladies tend to be the ones in charge on this world. In the in the relationships, there would be not quite ownership, but sort of she's responsible for her mates and things like that.
Yeah, business manager.
Yes.
So they get Troy to tell them where Nuria is so they can beam her aboard when she's alone. Picard meets her in the transporter. She is partly confused about meeting God, basically. Does kneel and do religious shit. Picard's telling her to stop that. No kneeling. No kneeling on my ship.
Because you do not wish it, I do not deserve it. Also, it looks awkward when, people are seeing people kneel.
It's really hard to keep both of us in frame when you do this. Please yes. Stand. So he tries to explain that they are basically the same. Takes her to look out the window and see that they're just really, really high up above the planet. It's not weird magic. I don't think that helps. People who have no concept of even air travel is just see, we're just higher up than you can normally be.
So how is this not magical?
Yeah. So finally, it just explains technology. Why did her people used to live in caves and hunt with bows? Because they didn't know, how to make all of those things. And if one of her ancestors saw her kill a deer with a bow, they might think she was magic because she can kill a deer at range and they can't do that. And then she goes, "What the hell is a deer?" No.
What do you hunt? Each other. What?
No, he just explains that their ship is just a really, really complicated bow.
So beyond you, it's crazy. Don't worry about it. If you had squirrels on the planet, I'd ask about if that thing that they use in a much later episode in Voyager, when they're trying to explain to a holographic projection of Leonardo da Vinci what technology of the future is and why it doesn't make sense to him. No scrolls there, so can't do that.
They've never figured out a good way to explain technology to people in these shows.
Not really.
She sort of seems to get it, but then asks if Picard can bring some of their children back from the dead. So Picard takes her to sick bay, where the other researcher is very conveniently dying. So you can see with all of their advancements, they still can't bring someone back from the dead.
Yeah, we can give you lots of patching up, but if you're like dead now, you're going Tasha on us. So too bad.
There's a difference between dead and mostly dead.
Yes. Though, again, Voyager even stretches that for one episode. They go full-on necromancy with Borg tech. Anyway.
Yeah, they do that all the time, depending on what they need to do. Now, back in the assembly hall, Liko's getting fed up with this lightning and is ready to just kill Troy. She does cause some doubt, though. She's like, how do you know that he wants me killed? How do you know that's not going to make him any more angry? This is the problem with all-knowing, unseen beings, isn't it?
Yeah, so, Liko, maybe you should just chill and, maybe let somebody else make all the decisions on this whole new religion thing you're trying to start here. Also, there's kind of, just 6-7 people here. How is this going to be a thing for the whole planet here in terms of cultural
how is this
contamination?
much of a religious movement?
Yes.
So
there's only one person that's fully into it, and everyone else is like, I guess.
The Liko is confused. He asks Picard for a sign. Speak to me. And Picard comes around the corner and goes, yo.
Oh, well, thanks. What's up?
That was convenient. How long was he waiting back there for that?
Good question, actually.
It's like, wait, yeah, we're here, but I have a feeling there's going to be a really, really good moment in a minute. Just,
yes,
let me have this one.
I need a proper entrance. Let's wait another 20 minutes.
He goes, no killing Troy. Also, stop worshiping me. Stop it.
Ignore me!
Nuria agrees because she's seen, how they work. It's not magic. It's just extra complicated bows and arrows.
Yeah, it's like they have 3 arrows in the bow or something like that. It's weird.
Liko goes, what are you talking about? This is a god, and I'll prove it by shooting him, and he won't die. That's a risky gamble. That's an interesting gamble on your part there.
Yeah, so Liko, assuming that, this sort of thing doesn't instantly result in you being smitten by the deity that you are claiming that this guy is, Picard points out the kind of obvious, either I'm a god, this will do nothing, or you'll kill someone, and that sucks.
Yeah, this is what we call the reverse man who would be king.
Yeah.
So Picard says, "Fine, if you need to kill me to see that this is over, then do it, coward."
Come at me, bro.
OG pushes the bow just before it's shot, so Picard only gets hit in the shoulder.
Oh, that's convenient. Picard, I hope you don't need that shoulder.
Yeah, that must have hurt.
Yeah.
Later, now that they all know what's going on, Picard shows them the duck blind, explains they observe other cultures to learn about their own past, because we used to be like you. We have to hide because we don't want, the general thing happening.
Yes. This was a screw-up on our part, our bad. We try not to let this happen. Hopefully sometime in the future we won't do this sort of mistake again.
They give Picard some sort of tapestry or something for his growing collection of knickknacks, and then they leave onto their very confused future.
Yep. The tapestry will actually keep showing up throughout TNG, as well as some of the movies there, even all the way into Insurrection.
Yeah, they keep the stuff. People say that there's no character progression in this show.
But slowly Picard builds up a whole museum's worth of cool stuff.
Yeah, this is cool junk. So that's Who Watches the Watchers. We watched it, and then we watched it, and then you listened to it, or watched it. You only sort of watched it if you do YouTube, because I'm not bothering to put visuals in there.
Oh, if we did, you could have watched those.
I mean, you could watch it, but it just sits there.
Yes.
So, it's like watching paint dry, but worse.
Now I kind of want to paint something. Anyway. So,
I've got a bunch of minis I haven't gotten to.
Get to it, Gepwin. Paint up those minis. But yeah, our episode here. So, what do you think about the ethics of having this sort of duck blind situation?
Oh, all of it's bad. This whole thing's bad. This whole thing is bad. Every part of it.
So this is a thing we do. It has a lot of risk involved, and could potentially ruin a whole civilization if we screw up and get people killed. Not just our own people this time too, but the locals that we're trying to keep tabs on. So that sucks.
So what I thought was interesting, I did a little bit of research because I was like, you know what, this episode, it's got some big problematic moral implications, and I feel like we have a thing like this now. We have uncontacted peoples in the world, mostly in South America, in like the Amazon jungle, some of those places that are really difficult to travel to.
Indeed. And and occasionally we do have a contact with them, and sometimes it's like, wow, there's these weird people from outside our forest home here. This is strange. Other times it's like, there's weird people from outside our forest home. Let's kill them.
So that, I think, is kind of the thing that made this entire moral conundrum click for me, is because we talk about uncontacted tribes in the real world like they're completely little isolated pockets of people that just haven't been gotten around to, essentially.
They must join our civilization, and we just haven't gotten the road there yet.
Well, not even that. Even if you respect their right to exist as whatever they want to do, like we basically have this, like, they live too far away, like they're just uncontacted by random happenstance and chance, essentially. Mm-hmm. But the reality of the situation is that they're not fully uncontacted people. There aren't any fully uncontacted people that we know of, because otherwise we wouldn't know they were there if they had never been contacted at all. So they might be, but we'd have no idea. All of the people that we know about are voluntarily isolated. Mm-hmm. They do not want it. They saw the colonialism, went, no thank you, we don't want any of that, bye. Most of them got pushed out of their original native territories. Stuff's not great. It's not good. They were still affected negatively by the colonialist enterprise, but they voluntarily left areas that were being contacted and went to live on their own and stayed there. And anytime anybody tries to get close or contact them, they defend their right to exist, sometimes violently, sometimes not, but they continue reasserting their deeply held desire to be left the hell alone.
Yes. It's sort of a, well, you're here to set up a farm in our forest. That means you cut down all the trees. We don't really have a home anymore. This is terrible. You have these gun things and you're shooting at us now because we don't want you to be here? Well, I guess we'll leave, but if you come looking for us later or just wander in with your bulldozers again, we're going to have some problems.
Yeah, there was that pretty famous incident a few years ago. I was just looking at this. I'm forgetting the exact year now. But a few years back, a missionary tried to get to North Sentinel Island, where that is completely off limits, has a voluntarily isolated tribe living there. They killed the guy offshore. They just killed him as he was approaching in his boat because they don't want people there and you're not allowed on the island. Mm-hmm.
It's like, go away. You're coming? All right, well, I guess we're going to skewer you here. Bye.
Which, like, he was doing stuff that was completely off limits according to everybody's laws. Like, it's terrible that somebody died, but he probably should not have been there.
And I believe even in that case, there is technically been, quote, contact, but they're still sort of like, anybody else that comes by, we're just going to attack them, so don't worry about it.
So we have all of our modern examples are people who choose to remain uncontacted, which is very different than what we have here, because here we have people who don't get a choice in being contacted or not. And actually, in a lot of cases, especially in times when they have to explain the Prime Directive to people, they would be fine with it. Mm-hmm. They are fully rational, modern peoples capable of making their own independent decisions on their own future and ways they want their civilization to progress. So you have two fundamental coinciding problems with how the Federation is treating them in this situation. The first being they're simply being exploited as a material resource. Because even though they're only studying them, you are still gaining a material benefit from the observation of people who did not agree to be observed and are gaining nothing from the situation, and as we've demonstrated, have things that they could actually lose in this situation. So you are exposing them to a potential detriment for your own gain with no compensation.
Indeed. You are a resource, you are a science point that we're collecting on a monthly tick here.
Yeah. And then, if you do accidentally contact them, or just the entire idea of the Prime Directive is just blatant paternalism. Mm-hmm. You're saying, I know better than you. You think you want advanced technology and medicine and for, your children to not die in a flood every year, but you're actually too stupid to realize that you'd kill yourselves with anything we give you. So bye.
Yeah, there's a little difference between, basic engineering for flood control and death rays here, guys. So maybe think about one being something you can teach to people and the other one maybe not so much. Maybe, I don't know.
But the basic explanation that they give, this is supposed to be a textbook example of what the Prime Directive exists for. They found out about advanced beings and they turned it into a weird murder cult. And at the end, they're like, this is why we can't contact people. Like, yes, because we, the dumb, ignorant savages, would behave the way that we did. We've just proven how unworthy of technological advancement we are.
Never mind that, the contact that these people from space made was just kind of the worst.
Well, what they had...
treating them with respect.
What they had was just a series of completely inexplicable events happen that they then made up explanations for in the way that you do. That's what most religion is at its basic level, is an explanation for inexplicable phenomena.
Why does the sun exist? Well, maybe it's some sort of deity. Or, why does the seasons change? Well, it was a Persephone that goes and hangs out with Hades or something like that. So clearly there's something supernatural going on to cause these massive changes in our world around us. And because, we don't understand that the Earth has a tilt to it, and goes around the sun and all that sort of things, we have to come up with these, explanations. So, there you go.
So instead of them saying, we saw this completely inexplicable shit, and then came up with explanations for it that fit within our current understanding of the world, which is possibly our ancestors had a point about all this supernatural crap happening. And then when it was explained to them, they understood that it was not that and stopped believing in it like that. And they went, oh my God, you're right. If you'd come down here and talked to us and explained to us what was happening in a reasonable way that anyone could understand, we definitely would have performed a murder cult.
Man, it's like, there's no wiggle room here. There's no middle ground between, everyone getting along in murder cults in this universe.
And we don't have a lot of examples of any of this in the real world because at most, inner civilization contact in our real historical world either happened so long ago that it was just Bronze Age trading empires that eventually turned into Europe, or it was colonialism. So we don't really have an example of people of disparate technological levels developing just a healthy trading relationship. But even in colonialism, most of the harm that was done was either completely intentional aspects of colonial practices, intentional destruction of native peoples and belief systems and cultures, or it was disease. It wasn't, we taught these people how to make guns and they couldn't understand guns and they just destroyed themselves with guns.
No, sometimes they used guns on each other, but also they used it on the people that are trying to take their land. And, they might have a point in not wanting to have people take their land.
Yeah, the entire idea that there's a, less civilized culture that just couldn't handle your level of technology is still just blatant colonialist thinking. Just the way that you're trying to turn it around is going, well, before we thought that we had to turn them into our culture because that's the only correct way to be, is to be our culture. And now we just say, like, well, anything we do will be bad. But it's exactly the opposite way of thinking. You can't take a bad system, reverse all of it, and then do that. That's exactly the same system. You haven't changed anything.
Indeed. It's like, all right, so I get it. You don't want to be going out and exploiting people, but you're still basically treating them the same way. Just you're not doing it in the same sort of fashion. Instead of going in there and taking their physical resources, you are extracting their cultural resources. And yes, in one they are very aware of this sort of thing happening, and in the other not so much. But that doesn't really matter in terms of sort of the ethics of the situation. You're still doing a harvest.
Yeah, in fact, the thing that this could fit probably most neatly into, and a real world example, would be our good old common friend Orientalism, in which a ostensively more advanced peoples get to come in and be the ones who do science and anthropologically explain this other pre-existing group. And because they're the ones who are doing science, anything they say is now automatically the way that we have to think about this group. And because it's an outside group coming in and defining a different group that they are not part of, anything that they say or do or get wrong is now completely ingrained in our scientific thinking about these people. So some other entity gets to come in and define everything about you, and then that has to be the way that the entire world thinks about you for the next, 500 years.
And hopefully we don't prime directive ourselves into letting you guys get wiped out by an asteroid or a plague or something like that. Then it'll never get have the record corrected.
Yeah. I mean, according to Picard, we should just let everyone die of plagues because, if you introduce a disease but then have the ability to cure it, you're just contaminating their culture, I guess.
Well, cultural contamination is the worst thing we could possibly have. So, they might as well be dead. So let's let them die. What? No.
Cultural contamination in itself is a colonialist idea. You just turned it around. This is the whole deification of native peoples.
One of the things folks really need to understand is that culture is an evolving thing. Cultures interacting with each other is part of how cultures evolve. That they do need this outside contact as part of their, maybe not need, but it is allowed in the, I guess, cosmic sense, because there's no one sitting down a rule that this cannot be the case. That helps, spur cultures to, change from one thing that they were in the past to something that they're in the future. Might be because they're adopting something from another culture, or they're responding to something from another culture, or they are as some technological innovation that either they got internally or externally, and how they're using it versus how it's used in a different area can also result in sort of an encouragement of alteration in the culture. And the fact that you are trying to prevent this interaction between the culture of the Federation and the culture on these individual planets is sort of very much, as you say, deifying this sort of these things are sacred, and who are we to modify it? Well, you are people too, and these are people on these planets, and to say that there must be an arbitrary line that cannot be crossed for any reason whatsoever is a little absurd, and it doesn't really make sense. So I guess the question is, why? Why is there separation? Why is this rule being put in place that there cannot be any contact? Are they afraid of something?
Well, like the explanation that they give is anytime we give someone technology, they destroy themselves with it. Which, great.
Well, all right. Well, there's technology, but there's also saying hello. Those are different things. I guess in some ways I'm reminded of how things are sort of treated in Stargate. That, yeah, at first when we start meeting these more advanced civilizations out there, they're like, yeah, we don't really want to have you guys kill each other with this stuff. We know your planet's divided, and if we give one nation state a whole lot of super tech, you might just use it on the rest of your folks on your planet and take over. And we don't really want to be responsible for, a genocide there. But once we sort of demonstrate that by interacting with these other civilizations, that we are going to act in a ethical way with this technology, they're like, all right, we'll let you have more and more, and we'll share more of it, because you have demonstrated that you're not as bad as we feared. And, we've had this cultural interaction here. And so we've gotten to know each other. And you also are, in some ways, learning from us, the crazy, space people here with the giant heads and giant eyes, that, maybe it's better to be cool and only fight the bad guys as opposed to, pointlessly get into tiffs with, our neighbors. And it's sort of an interesting contrast there. And then also in one of the earlier episodes, they're like, all right, well, we need to, get Carter out of some trouble because it's a horribly written episode. What if we trade you for, like, a gun? This warlord will like that.
Yeah, but then they go, he's going to run out of ammunition in about 5 minutes, so we should leave.
Yes. So, he doesn't know that yet, but, he'll just keep shooting this guy for a little bit. It's fine.
Well, I think Stargate does a kind of interesting critique of the Prime Directive, because they have a couple of episodes where they wind up on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple of different, like, they have two completely different episodes where they're like, we need to contact these people because they have massively more powerful technology or understanding of the world than we do. And then they're like, no, you might hurt yourselves with this. We're not going to give it to you. You're obviously like a weird, like, undeveloped species over here. Sorry. And us coming from, the exact culture and time period depicted in Stargate go, wait, us, an undeveloped culture?
What? And then you have the Shen, who are like, oh yeah, we'll totally help you, and we're going to, give you some medical treatments that just, cut your birth rates, and, oh, you're now much more easy to conquer, so hooray! AKA the asshole aliens.
Overall, I just think that, in general, every time that they show one of these in Star Trek, it's a very 80s way of looking at geopolitics, because you're just coming off of the main colonial era. We're saying, like, hey, maybe being colonialist interventionist peoples during, the Cold War wasn't a great idea.
So
and
maybe
like, what if we just did nothing?
Yeah.
Which, one, we didn't actually do. We sometimes said that, but we never actually did that. But
there might have been a lot of decolonization in terms of letting various nations become independent, but sometimes that was sort of independent in name only. It's like, yeah, you can make your own internal laws, just don't go too communist on us.
But there's also
we'll have a problem.
an interesting geopolitical problem that you hit, especially when you're espousing this as a correct worldview, because obviously in something like Star Trek, you have a genuinely unique, uncontacted, isolated population on a completely different planet that has nothing to do with you and never has. During the, 80s, when we were like, hey, maybe Cold War interventionism wasn't a great idea. Let's maybe pretend to stop for a little while.
Yeah.
Then you go like, well, we can't interfere with these people and their problems. That would be interventionist. It's like, but you caused those problems in the first place. And then you just left and went, good luck, fucker.
It's like, oh yes, we've carved up the natural borders of these various groups of people here, so that they're now split or between different countries and or put into countries with different groups that maybe don't get along with them, and we're going to expect that they're going to be able to govern a state right away. And that didn't really pan out. Also, we're demanding all these things of them while we didn't do a thing to set up some actual sort of robust institutions, physical infrastructure, or anything like that. So we're going to have to maybe either ignore this or give them lots of aid in order to let them actually build roads that we're going to require them to have.
Yeah, we had all these discussions through the 80s and 90s where our politicians in the U.S. are like, well, we can't sit around and babysit other countries forever. You're the one who fucked it up.
Yep.
This is your fault.
Replace your divot here. Come on.
So at least pave over the bomb hole. Come on.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things where, prior to the 2000 election, George W. Bush is like, it's like, I'm not going to be getting involved in any international intervention unless we have a solid exit strategy. And then we got involved in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then, over a decade later, things were still going. It's like, so that was complete nonsense because, actually doing the go in and then come out and, just wipe your hands of everything here doesn't actually work, turns out.
We're also taking interventionalist policies and using those to say, well, we went into Iran and stuff, and we gave people a bunch of guns, and then we told them to go shoot people we didn't like, and then it started a civil war, and the problem is clearly that we gave people guns, and therefore we should never interfere with another country at all, ever.
So you're saying that there wasn't actually an internal division of some of the people involved in that country in some fashion?
Well, you go into a place and you intentionally start a violent revolution for your own political ends. Mm-hmm. And then later you go, and that's why we should never get involved with other countries because it always ends badly.
Because we intentionally go in there with, motivations that are maybe not so good there. We cause problems, and then we're surprised that problems were caused. Whoops.
Yeah, we intentionally started a revolution, and there was a revolution. We didn't like that. That's the reason we can never do aid or help people, because it always goes bad.
Like, we're going to install this dictator here, and things are stable for a few minutes, and then people decide that, wow, having a dictator sucks. Let's do anything else. So, one revolution that leads to another.
Yeah. So anyway, the Prime Directive is just an extension of post-Cold War policies with the U.S. is trying to justify it's not cleaning up its own mess.
Mm-hmm.
By saying that if we did that, things would actually turn out worse.
Maybe at some point Star Trek will get around to maybe adjusting what the Prime Directive really should be so that it's less ridiculous and less of a reflection of this, bad behavior.
I keep thinking that you could make a really, really interesting sci-fi series if you took most of the basic stuff from Star Trek, but instead of going, we have a complete and utter, divinely ordained thing to not have to ever interfere or talk to people. Instead of doing that, you go, we as the technologically superior people here have a duty to try to not let horrible natural disasters wipe out random civilizations. But we also recognize that just showing up randomly on somebody's planet with advanced technology might have, like, unforeseen negative consequences. So the entire thing has to be, how are we going to prevent whatever terrible disaster from happening without completely revealing ourselves and contaminating the culture?
Indeed.
You could do some really interesting stories that way.
Which, oddly enough, has me thinking about Stargate again. There's one episode where there's an asteroid that's coming towards the Earth, and there's some suspicion about why it's on this particular path. But the Asgard and the like is like, well, this looks close enough to being a natural occurrence that we can't, under our treaties, actually help you guys out. So you got to deal with it yourself. And they're like, huh. Well, that sucks. But in a different episode, these Stargate folks are like, we messed up your son, sorry, and we're gonna try a thing, and it doesn't seem to work. Oh wait, it did? That's weird. It shouldn't have worked. Wait a moment. Maybe these guys did do something. They're just being coy about it.
Yeah, the thing where they screwed up something. The advanced aliens aren't allowed to help because of prior treaty negotiations with other advanced aliens. But then the fact that they tried to fix it gave them a loophole to come in and go like, hey, look, it worked. Haha. Yeah. Deniability.
No one can say otherwise that your rocket didn't actually do anything. So yeah, there's some interesting sort of ways you could sort of, turn things around on this sort of thing. And I'd kind of like to see that, perhaps. Perhaps a new Star Trek series set after the TNG area where they're like, maybe we should reevaluate this rule. And they're like, okay, let's actually, save people sometimes.
That was actually that was another interesting one on the way that Stargate handles its advanced technology. Because humans got advanced technology that they don't know how to use, and then they overrode a safety protocol that they didn't understand, and then caused a problem, and then the people who do understand it came in and was like, why the hell did you override a safety protocol, you absolute idiot?
We didn't know it was a safety protocol at the time, sorry. So in sort of a different, take on this particular episode of Star Trek, not Stargate, what do you think about maybe recasting this episode and have it be more about Liko and his unbearable grief as opposed to Prime Directive nonsense?
Yeah, because this is one of the core ways that you get one of these charismatic leader situations. Because that's another thing that was bothering me with the way that they discussed this, is just this is the natural outcome of people seeing more advanced technology that they can't understand. Is they're suddenly going to start murdering each other in the name of God.
No, this guy has a particular thing going on here. He recently lost his wife, and he's very emotional about it. And when any opportunity shows up to maybe undo that, he's going to be gripping onto it as tight as possible and doing everything in his power to get everyone else on board in order to try to sway the powers that he's now convinced exist to help out. And this isn't something that's going to be unique to him, but it is something that is of particular note that is driving him and his motivations. So it's sort of there's maybe certain circumstances that are at play here that are not in general going to be applicable to your first contact situation. So maybe don't necessarily focus entirely on the Prime Directive sort of aspects here in terms of the bogus motivations you have. Maybe it's like, oh, the reason this is actually happening is this guy is full of grief and wanting to have something to hold on to, some sort of hope. And hope is a great thing generally, but it can lead folks to some unreasonable behavior.
Well, I think what's actually interesting is they have him. They have him, with his recent trauma of losing his wife, and a lot of his character motivation is on this idea that he can, have some way to get his wife back. Mm-hmm. But you also have, as revealed through the interactions on the ship, that the entire small group here, your entire small family group, as they say in the beginning of the episode, has suffered a similarly devastating impact in several children and other people getting killed in a particularly bad flood season.
Yeah.
So
in fact, there's only one kid left.
Yeah. So what you really have is a entire civilization, like this entire group of people, this entire small social structure is all going through a bad time. And as we know from our own modern day examples, that is exactly the kind of place that these sort of, I don't want to frame it fully religiously, because they frame it very religiously in this episode, but what you really have is just a sudden cult of personality.
Yes.
You have this one person who, because he's, good at convincing others who are also in a bad state, is able to get them all to get behind a bunch of ideas that they might not otherwise agree to. And it's really just a look at how collective trauma and people not being in a good situation leaves them open to ideas that they might not otherwise ascribe to in normal circumstances.
Indeed. So, in a way, the accident with the duck blind situation is kind of bad timing, because, if this had happened, a year or so ago without all those deaths, maybe the folks involved are like, well, that's weird. This doesn't make any sense, but we're not going to be suddenly assuming that there's some higher power, Liko. And Liko will be like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it was all just hallucination. Maybe I went up there looking for a little shiny light and just fell off the rock and hit my head.
Yeah, they might not have had any... This just happened to hit at the right time for them to be more open to supernatural explanations of things than they would normally be, because they just all suffered a massive, group trauma. Even several years later down the line, when they'd had time to process it and move on with their general day-to-day, they might have had a similar result. And just like, oh, well, interesting flashy lights, not much to see here.
Yeah.
You hit your head.
It's like when they have new children, they don't think about their old ones anymore, right?
Yeah.
But that's maybe something that should be highlighted a little bit more in the episode, but alas, it wasn't.
Well, the thing is that these episodes that do the Prime Directive don't want to look at the actual, social underpinnings of what they're talking about. They want a very straightforward, we have technology. If we give other people technology too fast, it's just going to make them destroy themselves. It's a very convenient non-interventionist take. It's a explanation of why you, somebody with a lot of wealth and power, actually shouldn't help people without that, because it would just turn out badly for them.
And you'll feel bad for it, too.
Yeah, which is the real tragedy.
Oh no, people of the Federation are upset that, they didn't save those people from dying. Whoops. But anyway, that's most of what I had to talk about, though I guess there might be something to be... Never mind, I forgot what it was.
Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that we could go into, but in the interest of not talking about colonialism for 2 full hours, it's probably time for the galaxy's favorite game show! Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the galaxy's favorite game show. We got a few prizes to hand out today because we've been trying to rack up various points for the various contestants, but they're also being really sneaky about it because apparently they don't want to get caught by each other. Weird. Anyway, let's start handing them out. The first one is the Fooled You prize, which goes to the research team, at least until their faulty generator stops working, for, using holograms to hide. What do they win, Gapwood?
They win a backup battery. Because how in the world is every one of these episodes about how they are just the best, most advanced civilization ever, so much so that even seeing them will destroy lesser civilizations, yet every single piece of technology they have ever built explodes.
Mm-hmm. I think the only one that we run into that actually lasts the test of time was that generator on that one planet where the aliens like bite you and turn you into invisible people.
Yeah. Like, what's this? A spoon from the Federation? Oh, it explodes.
Meanwhile, this one generator's like, we're going to last forever and keep the lights on while we're doing it. Anyway, the second prize is the Sufficiently Advanced Aliens Prize, which goes to Picard and the crew for being this to Min Talkins. What do they win, Gepwin?
All right, this has been happening since Pike. So I think at this point, they get a pamphlet. It says, "So you think we're gods."
And, make sure it's translated in the right language, of course. And, it's like, this is a little rundown of, we have this thing called technology, and it's different than yours. And so it lets us do these things that seem miraculous, but they're not miraculous, so deal with it.
Which also, they always go, it's basically just a more advanced bow and arrow. And no one goes like, oh my god, you're going to shoot us from even farther away?
From, like, space? Wow. I guess we should be living in fear forever, then.
Yeah. We would never know.
Our final prize today here, because to give out more would just make things sadder, is the Wonderful Hostages Prize, which goes to the elderly Mintakan for just being so darn easy to tie up. What does he win, Gepwin?
He wins a TV. I think that he's got to the age where they should just leave a television there with a bunch of recorded footage, and he can just sit around and spend the rest of his days like accumulating his stories and soap operas. He was too nice.
He's a friendly fella, and kind of gets cut out from the later action, and was maybe a voice of reason despite being a source of information for the old tales. Anyway, that's all I got here, Gepwin. Feel free to take us away or beam us away and after we get horribly injured.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us here, and don't believe that this is any type of like god situation or form a cult around the galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo! So, what do you think about grieving?
You need to do it. It's a necessary part of life and shit.
Well, but what if we're discouraged from doing it?
Yeah. I mean, usually it turns out bad, but, like, not in the way that they think it does in the next episode.
Because the next episode, your lack of proper grieving results in a weird ghost mom entity that's like, hey, let's hang out.
Yeah, ghost mom.
Yeah.
I just hate it. I'm sorry. Like, we're obviously going to do more. We're going to talk about this in depth next week, but this is just one of those weird... I don't know why there was such a thing about this in the late 80s psychology, at least pop psychology, of just like, we need to make you cry. A bad thing happened and he hasn't cried yet, and that demonstrates that everything is wrong, and all we have to do is make him cry. If he just expresses an emotion that we want to force on him, everything will be okay.
Yeah, it's the expression of the emotion that matters and not the feeling of it.
Yeah, or the general community support or anything. It's just like, cry. Why haven't you cried yet?
Do it.
What's wrong with you? Don't you miss your mom?
If you don't, then that's the worst thing ever. But also, we're Star Trek, so we have to be really weird about how you interact with the concept of death as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, at least Worf gets himself a new family member that we'll never talk about again.
Yeah. You know, I really wish he'd shown up in some of those later, like, later DS9 episodes when, like, Alexander is training to go off to war. This kid should have just showed up. It's like, me too.
Wait, you're not a Klingon? Well, they let me on here because I like stabbing people. The Federation folks didn't like it that I kept thinking about my ghost mom situation.
Yeah, I was a member of your house, which then made me a member of Martok's house, and here we are. Now I've got some armor, and I stab people.
Well,
It's a whole
are
thing.
you good at stabbing? Better than Alexander. Good enough.
Yeah.
Which is not a high bar to pass, but you passed it.
So anyway, yeah, next episode we have another one of these like not Klingon things happen. They expand on Klingons. There's Ghost Mom. There's a lot going on for no reason that just ends because. That's my synopsis. A bunch of stuff happens for no reason, and then some Klingon shit gets loosely tied in.
Now, though, I will draw attention that there's also archaeology going on, and Picard's not like involved at all. So I guess he was on vacation before this episode starts.
Yeah, archaeology. I guess Picard's just like, no, I don't like this archaeology. Thank you. This archaeology is complicated and silly.
I'm not going to get involved in this archaeology. Maybe later.
Yeah. All right. Next time we have the episode called The Bonding, which sounds like it would be bad. And it is bad, but not for like weird sex reasons or any other reasons that other episodes with bonding are bad in this series.
So no Shibari then.
Yeah.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, a visit from Ghost Mom. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.